Well, can you all hear me? Am I very distorted, anybody? I mean, apart from my appearance. Okay. Okay. I'm very honored to introduce the first speaker in the Charleston conference in the Gilead Center. And it couldn't be a more appropriate one, because Courtney Young is a past president, immediate past president of the ALA. I see she's also a mover and shaker. But I won't say any more biography, but could you go to the podium, please?
Good morning. Thank you so much for inviting me to be here. Make sure my slide's there, yes. Start my timer. I see that the front seats are nice and available, just like when I do course-related instruction, so that's good. So good morning. It's really great to be here with you and at the Charleston conference. As you can see from the title of my presentation, I will be talking about the value of libraries and association leadership view. And this, of course, is going to be filtered very much through my sort of academic librarian lens. But I will be talking a little bit about other types of libraries as well. So as ALA president, that did not work, I work with members from all types of libraries and from all types of library-related roles to highlight areas of interest and emphasis with the association's mission and vision. And for me, that's diversity, career development, and engagement and outreach. I believe that these are the things that really bring value to being a member of the association, and in turn, the work that we do in and for libraries. They also help us to have a positive impact on the communities that we serve, and in my case, those are campus communities. I've come to realize that these three areas from ALA's mission, diversity, career development, and engagement and outreach, are what have helped me, someone who is a frontline librarian in an academic library, who's working with traditional and non-traditional age undergraduate students from around the world, to do my job better and to be a change agent for those whom I teach. This opportunity to see how libraries of all types are serving their communities has really allowed me to bring back some new ideas and to take different approaches to the way that I do my work. It's also raised my profile among the campus faculty and staff who I work with so that they really get a better sense of the type of impact that librarians and libraries can have on the national level. They're really surprised that, wow, libraries are doing an awful lot. This is kind of an important role. I'd say, just a little bit. So the chance to serve as the association's chief spokesperson meant, among things, speaking with the media about libraries. Often this was around that question of, do we still need libraries? Yeah, exactly. I'm glad that at least there was one chuckle. What do today's libraries have for 21st century users? And in many cases, they were talking about the country's over 16,400 public libraries. But often when I talk about libraries, that's what they're thinking about. They're thinking about the public library. And that's okay on a certain level. But academic libraries, which in some communities function as the public library, are just as dynamic and exciting, but also as at risk and challenged as their public counterparts. And which brings up the questions about the value of libraries. So if I look back on my presidential year, I do have a few thoughts on this. There we go. First, the value of academic libraries. Now, the Association of College and Research Libraries, ACRL, produced Value of Academic Libraries, a comprehensive research review and report in 2010. This report provides, quote, a clear view of the current state of literature on the value of libraries within an institutional context, suggestions for immediate next steps and demonstration of academic library value, and 3, a research agenda for articulating academic library value. Many of the next steps in the report reflect a national dialogue on public and school libraries. These include linking libraries to improve student retention and graduation rates, enhancing library contribution to student job success, and demonstrates to develop library impact on student learning. This is likely because the executive summary states in the report's scope, this report, which includes significant research from other library types, school, public, and special libraries, as they offer, and I quote again, examples of numerous library value approaches and lessons learned from each other. I'd also like to note that the report purports the need to promote and participate in professional development and leverage library professional associations. ALA went on in this by adding professional and leadership development to its new strategic directions that were approved by the association's council in June of this year. This, for me, is real recognition of the fact that professional and leadership development of librarians and library workers is essential to high-quality professional practice and the future of libraries and information services, increasing the diversity of libraries professionals and sustaining their professional growth through multiple strategies, and aligning leadership development and continuing education with the best thinking about the changing information environment. And I think that there are a few people in this room who know a little bit about that changing information environment. Now, I had the opportunity to attend the 2014 South Korea Library Association Conference in Baoshan, Korea. And there, the U.S. Information Resource Officer, Alka Bognatar's presentation, Skills for the Librarian of the Future, she noted the service philosophy for 21st century librarians as being user-centric, high-quality resources and services to meet the exponentially growing recreational and knowledge needs of the globally networked current, potential, and future diverse community users in a conducive environment. So if you think about those pieces that she calls out, it's user-centric. They're high-quality resources and services. It's growing recreational and educational needs. It's globally networked. It's current, it's future, it's also potential. It's diversity as well, all taking place in an environment that is conducive to all of these things taking place. Now, even though I know that she was talking about public, community-focused libraries, this sounded a lot to me like the experiences that we're shaping in today's academic libraries. It's that intersection of resources and services to support our students' academic and social, personal needs that connects them with the world. It recognizes and celebrates diversity, all in the right locations that are outfitted appropriately. So for this morning, I'm going to share a few thoughts about library value through advocacy, through partnerships, as well as diversity. Now, first, I'm going to start with advocacy. Now, I see advocacy as the foundation of that value piece. It's defined as the public support for or recommendation of a particular cause or policy. It is one of ALA's new strategic directions. So when it comes to advocacy, the American Library Association aims to advocate for the public value of librarians, libraries, and information services, and seeks to focus on ALA's mission and priorities, working with three key constituents: ALA members, libraries, as well as the public. Now, the key components in this area are to bring support for libraries and librarianship through public awareness, providing a vision of innovation, enabling the future of libraries, and promoting libraries as centers of community engagement and participatory librarianship, and also by promoting ALA's core values and emphasizing the impact of libraries to form the basis for advocacy and community conversations. If we start with that educational piece, when you tell someone that you're a librarian, that they won't say, do we still need librarians? Do we still need libraries? You must really like to read. An effective advocacy campaign on behalf of libraries of all types will remind their communities of the vital roles that libraries play. It'll raise that community's profile, and ultimately it will build support. We need to build support with our faculty, both those who are full-time as well as part-time. Our students, who are often based in their department or discipline, or even the student groups that they're associated with, as well as our campus staff. They often work directly with our students, be it in academic affairs, student affairs, as coaches, part of writing center staff. Another advocacy piece that's related are library spaces. The themes I highlight when I speak to the media regarding new renovated public library centers and library projects, either new or renovations, include more technology, including computer centers and wireless access. It's more community and performance spaces like the one we're in this morning. It's about auditoriums and meeting rooms, as well as vibrant and comfortable spaces. So our advocacy for transformed library spaces are also key in terms of the advocacy work we do on campus. Once our libraries were constructed to be warehouses of printed volumes that would not even leave the confines of the building, our academic libraries are now dynamic, multi-purpose, multifunctional spaces. Who has the best hours on campus? Likely, it's the library that has the best hours on campus. At some colleges and universities, we're the first to open and we're the last to close. And then, of course, in some places, we're open 24/7, and that perpetual access to the library is just a given. Academic libraries are being reconceptualized to allow students to work directly with each other, as well as to effectively engage in virtual collaboration. These are quiet study areas, which we still do need, group study areas, which our students are demanding more and more, computer and other digital media labs. Our print collections still have a real role to play in the students' life on campus, and so access to those materials is also part of that design. The beauty of the way 21st century libraries are being built or renovated is that they are not only setting students up for academic success while they're in college or at the university, but also for life after college. These blended spaces for group work and quiet study, with access to various technologies and experts, often referred to as knowledge commons or information commons, they look a lot like those modern day office spaces where students go to work once they graduate. We need to create and seize opportunities to advocate for the library and articulate its value. This means all members of our library staff must become advocates, and they should be empowered to speak to the library's strengths and contributions to the campus community. It's not just the job of the dean or the director or the AULs, it's everyone's job to have that advocacy role. So just as I was prepped to talk about why libraries were still important in the age of Google and the types of services and resources that are available, everyone on that staff needs to be educated and encouraged to articulate the value to our constituents. Next, partnerships. This might not seem earth-shattering, but sometimes a reminder is a good thing. During my presidential year, I observed how important advocacy and partnerships are for libraries and the unique role that partnership plays in the US versus in other countries that I had the opportunity to visit. So for example, through a lot of hard work and advocacy, public libraries were included in the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, ensuring that public libraries are recognized as places where job seekers can go to search for job search assistance and employment training. My international travel demonstrated to me that this notion of partnering with other agencies, other social agencies, government agencies, other folks in the community, was not necessarily the norm. In our academic libraries, we're also partnering with other groups on campus and across the campus, sometimes with departments, sometimes with specific faculty. We're partnering with those units so that we can help in providing tutoring to our students through our tutoring centers and our writing centers, as well as international programs for those students who often come to our campuses ahead of when other students arrive on campus. My year as president demonstrated to me that it's important to continue to be aggressive in building those partnerships and even expanding on the partnerships that we currently have in place. I also think we need to recognize partnerships that we have with publishers and vendors who are also a part of our library community, many of whom possess library school education and started off in our library schools as students alongside us. As publishers, in addition to developing products and the functionality often with librarian input, you're also working with many members of our faculty to help them to publish their research and facilitate access to their work. Some of our biggest supporters in library advocacy arena have been our publishers, and for that work, I am incredibly grateful. Diversity, inclusion, and equity. Now, diversity, which is also becoming to include inclusion and equity, but being more inclusive when we say diversity these days, a little ironic. It's a programmatic priority of the American Library Association, and it focuses not only on fostering the diversity of the profession, but also working to ensure that we're serving all members of our communities, all segments of our populations. The 1990 Diversity and Collection Development Interpretation of the Library Bill of Rights states, and I will quote, "Librarians have an obligation to select and support the access to materials on all subjects that meet, as closely as possible, the needs and interests of all persons in the community which the library serves. This includes materials that reflect the political, the economic, religious, social, minority, and sexual issues. Libraries and librarians are critical to literacy and multicultural awareness. Library programming is an opportunity to foster intellectual and cultural enrichment." Again, our libraries are an opportunity to foster intellectual and cultural enrichment. So through speaker series, One Campus, One Book projects, even art installations. These are all examples of library programming that's taking place that not only brings the academic community together, but also provides opportunities for diversity and inclusion, particularly when you consider that libraries are designed as destinations for our undergraduates, our graduate students, faculty, staff, and community members. Now, diversity and librarianship really go hand in hand, and I believe this is essential for everyone who's working in a library or pursuing a degree in library and information sciences or a related field. Those librarians or libraries whose librarians and staff and volunteers have a significant impact on their communities, they not only understand this, but they embrace it as well. And they're showcasing that their libraries are not only a rich source of diversity, but are places where difference is truly welcome. Now, ethnic and racial diversity are usually what come to mind first when people mention the term diversity. But it means a whole lot more. There's, of course, gender identity, gender expression, national origin, religion, social class, age, sexual orientation, physical and learning abilities. And of course, in our university setting, we're talking about our students who are coming to us as traditional age students, as they're undergraduates, adult learner undergraduates, our graduate students, our international students, our first generation students, and then of course our faculty, our staff, our administrators, our alumni, our community users. These reflect all the ways in which our communities exist and all the ways in which our communities are changing. Over the course of my career, I've come to realize that libraries are probably the richest source of diversity in our communities. And in some cases, I would even go as far as to say that they are the richest untapped source of diversity in our communities, the richest untapped source of diversity, a place where the potential for successful understanding, inclusion, and equity can exist. I have to take a moment to recognize the fact that we are in Charleston and that we are a very short walk away from the Emmanuel African Methodist Episcopal Church. Cynthia Graham Hurd is a public librarian who, along with 8 members of her congregation, lost their lives on June 17th as a result of a senseless, racially motivated hate crime. We have a long way to go as a society. But when it comes to getting to that place where equity and inclusion are a valued way of life, I strongly believe that libraries and librarians can lead the way and play an active role in healing our communities and creating those much-needed safe environments for all. The changing demographics in the United States are and will continue to have a huge impact on our communities. In 2012, the U.S. Census Bureau numbers showed that the population aged 5 and under was at 49.9% minority. The non-white population increased by 1.9% to 116 million, which is 37% of the U.S. The fastest percentage growth is among multiracial Americans, followed by Asians and Hispanics. Non-Hispanic whites make up 63% of the U.S., Hispanics 17%, blacks 12.3%, Asians 5%, and multiracial Americans 2.4%. Now, trends indicate that the United States will become a majority-minority country in a rapidly approaching future, and communities nationwide are seeing demographic shifts that impact programming, collections, outreach, and staffing. Of course, these figures do not provide us with snapshots of other dimensions of diversity. For example, physical and mental disabilities are increasingly visible. In the 2012 Disability Status Report from Cornell University, 12.1% of the U.S. population was indicated to have a disability. Now, going back to another thing that Alka Bognatar noted in her presentation in South Korea, she said, and I'll quote, "The relationship between libraries and their communities is at a critical intersection. There has never been a more rapid period of change affecting libraries and their communities. As a result, there has never been a better opportunity for library employees to act as leaders for positive change." So as academic librarians, staff, and supporters, we're uniquely positioned to build a community of advocates, to collaborate and build partnerships, and foster diversity, equity, and inclusion. Our collections, our programming, the services we provide, the resources that we provide, these all lend to that opportunity within our academic libraries. One final thought, particularly since this session is being streamed. When I became president, I knew one of my unique contributions could be in the area of social media. I personally was participating in this space in a way that other presidents had not, which isn't just to say anything about previous presidents, but just to say that that's just part of who I am, particularly as a Gen Xer. I know that social media is related to library services. Marketing and the like can be hit and miss, but I'm also so proud of this profession's willingness to experiment and model the aspirational behavior that is so important in our communities today. I also discovered social media's power as an advocacy tool. It's a strong partnership tool, and it is also a way to engage diverse populations and groups in real conversations, not just as a one-way output for information. I'm excited that by using social media, we can make connections, we can build relationships, and we can improve our professional skills by tapping into an amazing personal learning network. And on that note, I look forward to the work ahead and continued improvement of my skills as an advocate, a partner, and a champion for diversity, equity, and inclusion. I look forward to spending time with each of you during this conference and, of course, on social media. Thank you.
now questions. For questions, you can walk forward to microphones on this floor. There are microphones at the corners of that floor. Katina, did you have a question by any chance? Katina has a question.
Does this work? Courtney, I enjoyed your talk. Thank you so much for being here. What do you think that the academic library of the future, let's say in 10 years or 5 years, how is it going to be different, or how should it be different?
How's the academic library of the future going to be different, and how should it be different?
Yes.
Okay. So making sure that I heard the question correctly. It's a great question. As I'm sure many people in this room know, change in academia is not a fast process. It takes a little while for things to happen. I think that our spaces are going to continue to transform. It's going to be more obvious for students where they can go to get the help that they want, where they can go to do the work that they do, and hopefully that it's going to be just obvious. We won't have to print out signs that we put in little clear Mylar things on desks to tell students, this is what you do here, this is what you do there. It'll just become obvious to students the way that space has been designed with them in mind, with their input, and that they can use it the way they want. We're going to continue to make the experience of finding the resources that students want to be something that's more seamless. I think we're really working hard to design our libraries so that they are perpetually relevant to our students and our faculty, and then in turn, that demonstrates our value. We're still going to have print collections, maybe where they're located. How students are interacting and using them may start to shift a bit, but I think that they're going to change in sort of exciting ways, and it's going to be so seamless that it'll be we'll get to a point where we won't really sort of say, well, we made that obvious change in the library. It just kind of will exist in an organic way, and so I'm really excited to see the way that spaces continue to transform. I'm currently in a library that's working on a feasibility study, and the space is still historically accurate to when that was built in 1972. So I'm excited about the opportunity for that space to really be 21st century and something that the students take ownership and are excited about.
Other questions? I'm sure there is a question lurking there, but they won't come forward. I think one of the directors may have a question, perhaps. Don, are you coming to ask a question? No, you're going away. Okay, I have a... She's taking a photograph. I have a question. I worked for many years in publishing associations, or for them, or with them, and I wonder whether the speaker sees more opportunities for librarians and publishers working together on areas where they're not in conflict.
On areas where they're not
both publishers and librarians are keen on quality information being used and being maintained, and also being created and peer-reviewed and so forth. And we both agree with that. And there are areas where you have to lobby governments, but we're doing it separately all the time.
Yes, there are absolutely, I think, going to be increasing opportunities for libraries and publishers to work together, because we really are focused on very similar goals. And I think that conversations that I've had as a part of being in ALA leadership, that we're having more and more conversations about how we can work together and how we can move forward, because we are in a space, particularly when it comes to advocacy, and I think also with regards to diversity and equity and inclusion, that we're going to really start to move from just kind of talking about and actually start to do it. The current, or I should say the rebooted Campaign for America's Libraries is the Libraries Transform initiative that launched on October 28th. And we are starting to see some real strong support from our various publishers and vendors to help us to get the message about libraries out. Because the fact of the matter is that you have reach and contact with significantly more people and users than our libraries do individually. And if we can get your support in getting the message out about how important libraries are, the value of our libraries to those constituents, we can really start to have that significant change with regards to how people perceive the space that we're in. And so I'm excited about the opportunity to build on those strengths and those opportunities. On those strengths, I know that within the association there's a real strong interest. There's just no other way for us to operate in the 21st century. Collaboration is king. People expect us to collaborate. I think libraries are real models for collaboration. So I think we're going to start to move aggressively as well as have actual sort of outcomes. It isn't just us talking about, we should do something. Yeah, we should do something. And the conversation ends there, that we do actually, as ALA's executive director likes to say, that we actually start to put some skin in the game and start to move forward. You guys see?
Excuse
We have
me,
a question.
Anthony, there's somebody upstairs who wants to ask a question. Are there
Yes, and there's one here too. There's one there.
Are there mics
I can wait
up
if the
there?
person upstairs wants to go first.
Okay, upstairs then, wherever you are, ask a question, please. Upstairs? I can't see them, so perhaps this lady will go first. There's a person here.
Oh, okay.
Oh. Could you say who you are? Could you say who you are first? Okay, thank you.
You're great.
Is that the question? Okay? Yeah?
So there's two pieces that I would respond to with regards to that question. First of all, your collection development policies and statements support how you choose to build or not build your collections. And so I think that if you have well fleshed out collection development statements and policies, hopefully you also have one that's related to diversity. Hopefully that diversity is woven into all of those statements. That will support, give you the rationale for what you choose to collect or not to collect. The other piece of that is that, partnerships, collaboration, consortiums are a real opportunity to add strength and breadth to your collections in areas where you're maybe not going to collect, but maybe you have a partnership or consortium either in other science libraries, other institutions like yours, a state consortium that provides the collections and resources that your members need or are interested in with regards to those areas where you know you're not going to collect. So that sort of access versus ownership question that we've been struggling with since I was in library school in the late 90s, to me sort of comes into play. So you're going to decide that there are things you're not going to take. There are going to be donations that come to your library that you're also going to reject as well. But if people want access to that information, I know that those consortial relationships that I have are going to support it. So I don't think it's being undiverse. It's being very strategic about what you're going to develop, but also knowing that you're going to provide that access as well.
Okay, we have two more questions. One there and then there, okay? The lady over there.
Good morning.
Good
Thank
morning.
you so much for starting so many interesting conversations. The one I wanted to pick up on was the use of social media. Having just read a report that seemed to indicate that Facebook has just started to take over Google in terms of driving internet traffic, which is really fascinating to me, especially given that in a lot of libraries it's sort of this peripheral, if we get time for it, sort of thing that we do. So I was just wondering if you had any thoughts in terms of how we would use social media well in our job as facilitating information access and making libraries heard.
So I want to make sure, because the sound up here is
It's
pretty
terrible. We can hardly hear
So
anything.
clarifying that, the question is, do I have any thoughts about using social media well to facilitate access and to inform our users about our information, our resources and services and the like? Thank you
Yes,
for
you got it.
for being patient. Because I'd hate to sort of start answering the question and everyone say, what is she talking about? But you might already be doing that, I'm not sure. But I have seen a number of groups either forming organically or through some associations really starting to dig their teeth into this. It's clear that it's not just sort of this fun little fad thing that a few librarians want to do. There are some, and it's going to vary from community to community, which is why it's so frustrating, because we can't just say that, Courtney Young's model of using social media to engage her users is the model to follow. I'd love for that to be the case, but it varies so much. So our institutions are so different. Our students are so different. Many of us have students who could care less. The myth of the digital native is a myth. So we have students who don't care at all about social media, but then we have people who really, really love it. So unfortunately, it's kind of a non-answer. But I think that monitoring the literature that's starting to come out with regards to using social media, the groups like on Facebook, for example, from ACRL's Library Marketing and Outreach group, they're doing a lot where they're experimenting and they're sharing that information. I think that sort of the sharing piece is giving people a real opportunity to do some of that experimentation and sort of playing around. These are things that are not going away. So I think that it's important to determine who within your library is interested in doing this, providing them with some of the training and resources that they need to do it effectively, because sometimes there's not a real sort of connect. It's like, Courtney's great at tweeting, but if Courtney doesn't have an understanding of how marketing works, how good outreach takes place, Courtney tweeting for our library doesn't really do anything. So I think we need to start, and I think a lot of institutions are trying to do this, start thinking more strategically about the way that we're going to engage people. Just as we're determining which sort of research fairs or outreach fairs that we decide to attend and not attend, social media, I think, is going to sort of act in that way as well. I see a lot of sort of empty and abandoned Facebook groups, for example. Clearly, it seemed like a good thing to do. It didn't work out, but what kind of assessment did you do? Did you determine, they really went in a different direction? Did they decide to do something else? So I apologize for the non-answer, but I'd love to kind of continue to think about it, because I'm sure that there are others who are also kind of struggling with this, who have great ideas that I would love to hear as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very quick.
Sorry. Talk.
My name is Michael Cooper, live in Ithaca, New York, and work for Ambassador, a vendor. Thank you for mentioning the local church, the very positive response from the community here to that tragedy, and you've also talked about library advocacy as a social upliftment. But what, as a Generation Xer, as you proclaimed yourself to be, and seeing all these increasing tragedies on campuses, what can you share with us of your insights? What's going on here on college campuses? Sorry.
Please go ahead.
I'm sorry, because I got pieces of it. Ask it without the microphone. I think it might actually be better. step away from the mic and ask again, could you, please?
Can you share, and I know we don't have much time, but from your perspective, anything about this trend that is so troubling of violence that's now reaching so many campuses as well?
He wants to know your perceptions on the tragedies on campuses, basically.
I think that students have been very aware of what's been going on in a variety of places, obviously Charleston, but also Ferguson, Baltimore, and what the Ferguson Public Library has done, Enoch Pratt Public Library has done. Students are very aware of what's going on, and they want to talk about it. They want to make their positions known, that this is not something that they're comfortable with, and that they don't understand why some of these violent acts have taken place. And so I think the library has been, on campuses in particular, have been very good in terms of reaching out to students to let them know that our libraries are safe spaces, that they're all welcome, providing them with opportunities to have those dialogues as well. Student groups, for example. I know of a couple of academic libraries around the country, student groups who approached the librarian, the person in the library with whom they identified with, who they felt always was very welcoming to them, to ask if there was something that could be done. And so there have been some really strong partnerships that have come out of it as well. I think our students are really struggling with it. They want the opportunity to talk about it. Social media, I think, has been used very strongly as well. Washington University in St. Louis, of course, has been gathering various tweets, resources, ephemera, so on and so forth, to build these collections around, for example, the Black Lives Matter movement. So I think that we have really stepped up to the plate, and our students have been appreciative of it, and they want to keep having those conversations. So it's very exciting, and it's something that really inspires and motivates me to continue to do the work that I do and to make sure that my library is a safe space, that it's welcoming, and that we are really responding to students' needs. This is not only academically, but also in those sort of personal and social spaces.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much for your presentation and for the question answering. Can we clap them? Thank you.